Coming up on this episode of Common Denominator.
I can't tell you how foundational, how fundamental this is for the future from here for artificial intelligence, for intelligent interactions with software and anything like that.
Hi, and welcome to Common Denominator, where we focus on human connection and what brings us together. I'm Moshe Popack, and today, ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, and how the technological evolution will impact all of us. Ganesh Padmanabhan is an expert in AI. He's the CEO and founder of Autonomize, Inc., a software company focused on applying AI to healthcare outcomes. He's also been featured in Forbes, Business Insider, Fast Company, and more. We're about to pick his brain about the future of artificial intelligence. Before we do, a quick reminder that if you like the show, please subscribe and follow me on social media at mpopack. Now, here's my conversation with Ganesh. Enjoy. Hi, Ganesh.
Hey, Moshe. How are you?
I'm doing well, and welcome to Common Denominator.
Thank you, Moshe. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So, obviously, all this buzz about ChatGPT, you as being an expert in artificial intelligence, what do you make of it at this point?
Well, I mean, to go from 0 to 5 million users in 5 days or 3 days or something, it's no small feat, right? I think the biggest thing that, ChatGPT, technically, it's a very glorified autocomplete, algorithm that'll just do a really good job that's optimized for dialogue, right? But the more fun thing about you, if you really think about it, is it captured the imagination of people and what you can do with AI, right? And I look at this, there's a lot of people talking about the ChatGPT moment being the iPhone moment in history for mobile. But I think there's some credence to it. But, it took a long time to get here as an industry, right? So, AI, the term artificial intelligence was coined in the 1960s. And ever since, it's taken different variant forms. And we talk about the winters where things like researchers just give up and nothing's smart going to come up. And then all of a sudden, some breakthrough discovery happens and the whole thing picks up again. So the last time we had a moment like this was when IBM Watson defeated Jeopardy, the Jeopardy player on TV. Right. That was in 2011, I think. And at the time, it captured the imagination of AI. Has been people who have been in this system for machine learning and AI and data. They understand the nuances, the technical side of it. But IBM Watson made it a dinner table conversation, right? Because everybody could just capture the imagination of it. Now, whatever happened to that thread there, but we kind of created a whole bunch of hype, and then we normalized back into the tech-first companies taking advantage of it and so forth, and people starting to look at artificial intelligence as a field, as something they can build careers on and stuff like that. So that was the first iteration. What happened now with this whole thing started, I think 2017, there was a research paper that was published, which is the foundational thing. It's called Transformers, which is, a very smart math way to actually, make a machine learning model do whatever you want it to do. And I'm completely oversimplifying this, right? Which kind of changed the world of deep learning as we know it. And then the evolution of this generative pre-trained transformers or GPTs is actually a family of that, right? It was that big innovation that happened on the research side. Right. But ChatGPT meant two very distinct things for humanity as a whole. One is technically, ChatGPT is probably not the most advanced form of artificial intelligence. It's definitely not the most advanced form of artificial intelligence today. There are much better models that do much better things and stuff. What they did was actually prove out two things. One, the simplest way to interface with an intelligent system is a conversational interface or a dialogue, right? And if you really think about the simplicity of that, all of us technologists work all these years thinking about what's the best user experience. How do you actually, build a nice UI and buttons to click and all that kind of stuff. And ChatGPT showed that it's not a human being behind it. It's an algorithm that is giving you predictions of the next best word, next best token. And the way people engage and interact with it is through a simple chat interface. You ask questions, you get answers, and you make it a dialogue, right? I can't tell you how foundational, how fundamental this is for the future from here for artificial intelligence, for intelligent interactions with software and anything like that.
And I really love that you're talking about the simplicity. My brother's in the tech space, and we always go back and forth about, in actuality, like you're saying, going from in a couple days 0 to 5 billion downloads. I always think about tech. In the end of the day, people are not so sophisticated. I always say, like the KISS model: keep it simple, stupid, right? Yep. I guess that's what they were able to do. Where literally my teenage kids, are using it to get a value. You're able to give value to people on a very simple level. That's kind of what it seems, right? You want information, boom, and it's quick, fast, and it's clear. And my kid doesn't have to write an essay, and that's great, right?
No, you're exactly right. But the other nuance on what ChatGPT really signaled or signified is the fact that most of the work that was happening in AI were under the covers until now. All the innovations were happening under the covers, more foundational in nature, building the models, building the interaction system, the ways to work with data, and so forth. And what ChatGPT or GPTs in general, and this wave of what they're calling generative AI, is also, creating new levels of abstraction for human beings to interact with intelligent systems. So if you think about, 15 years ago, if you were to build a machine learning based piece of software, you had to configure hardware, you had to actually buy the right hardware, configure it, write the libraries, the compilers, all the layers of the stack. And then you get to some open source libraries, and you actually build a model, define it, test it, validate it, and go do it. Fast forward in the last 5 to 10 years, that process has gotten a lot simpler. You know how to write in Python. You can go in, get into a web-based IDE, build your model, train it with the data that you have. You have to still understand you're starting from scratch, you're building models from scratch, and you get it to a point. What the GPT and the current generation of AI is actually enabling is you don't need any of that. You start with the place of an intelligent system like ChatGPT and all the other things that's going to come right after this. You can ask it to do things without having to implicitly and explicitly program it. So the level of expertise you need to have to use and to take advantage of AI just completely, got lowered, right? I mean, you don't need to be an expert or data scientist to work with AI anymore.
And I think about it, maybe it's a good analogy, maybe it's not, but I think of when the iPhone came out, right? So it's like the iPhone, it's like this base, and then all these different people were able to come up with, different games and models and so forth, just so it's like an operating system.
Ecosystem, yep.
Like an ecosystem, right? So that's kind of right. And I see that like that. Now, I've been hearing some stuff in the news about any negative answers. Is there some bias there? Does that exist? What's the story with that?
Well, end of the day, it's a tool, right? It's a machine learning model. It's a piece of software. Despite anybody saying anything, it doesn't have sentience. It doesn't know that it exists, any of that stuff, right? But if you really break it down, what is a GPT model that powers the dialogue ChatGPT? Well, it is basically a large machine learning model, which is basically an algorithm that, instead of you explicitly saying you should, if this happens, you should do this, you're actually an algorithm. Machine learning algorithm is you feed the data, you show them the results, and let it make up how it actually arrives at the results. So given a new input, it'll know what the way to get to the output, right? So that's the way these machine learning models work at a basic level. What ChatGPT is actually trained on every piece of publicly available information in the universe today, any piece of digital information. So what does that entail? That entails all the Twitter commentary from anybody who doesn't have credence or no credence and whatever. It includes all the Facebook posts that is now publicly can be scraped. All the blogs that's out there, all the publicly available government information, all the publicly available, whatever that's like available for, like, it could be, you have really terrible websites, you have really great websites, you have really unchecked, non-fact and non-factual and conspiracy theory spewing websites, you also have blogs that are actually very well, referenced and so forth. All of that is amalgamated, shoved into this model, this large model, the GPT model that powers it, and it is retained as knowledge for answering questions when you ask them, right? So what is happening in ChatGPT is, so obviously there is bias, as you said. There is harmful content that is embedded into the system, and actually the technical word itself is embedding. And then so there is this risk of actually when you ask a question, and if you notice, if you played with ChatGPT, you can frame the question to get the answer. So the smart person is not the algorithm; it's the person who's asking the question, right? You can say, "Hey, instead of saying is Autonomize the best healthcare company, my current company," I can ask him, "Why is Autonomize the best healthcare company in the world?" And it's an autocomplete model. It just says that, okay, I need to complete that sentence. I need to give that answer based on the starting point the person has given me. So Autonomize is great because, and it'll start drawing from all the different, healthcare-oriented AI capabilities that it learned from the public web and scraping websites, and it'll give me an answer. So naturally, if you ask questions like saying, you spew obscenities on that particular thing, the knowledge layer is going to retrieve an answer for you is basically where it saw another obscenity that somebody actually said on a social media site. Right. So, and the response was most often another obscenity and something else, right? So that is just the way, so the issues of bias, harmful content and stuff is actually very real because it's the way the model is designed to work. Right. I mean, that's the unfortunate truth. Now, one nuance I'll actually call out, right? One little thing on this is, but it's a little deeper than that, right? I think one of the reasons you're seeing these reactions from people of all walks of life is, we fundamentally think of like machines or algorithms as a very analytical tool. You give, I need to crunch numbers, I pick a calculator, right? I need to actually run a spreadsheet and do a regression analysis, I ask an AI algorithm. But creativity was always a core human domain. We always thought machines are never going to be creative. It's never going to be, innovative in the way it actually solves problems and so forth. Well, for the first time, you actually have a dialogue engine, a dialogue system that is showing or showcasing creativity just like humans would. The real reason it's doing that is because humans have put that creative works out there in the open and it's learned from it. And it's just going to copy paste that and, not technically copy paste, but basically draw from that knowledge and generate the value for you.
So how do you see, but the question is, how do you see, like, if you would have like your vision for being in this space, for the average person, we talk about how can artificial intelligence make people's lives better? Like, in other words, moving forward from a practical perspective.
Yeah, no. So look, I think, this is going to, what people don't realize is this is going to open up a lot of innovation. It's going to bring all the bad actors and the good actors into this thing. This is a huge call for innovation with AI because now you cross the threshold of the barrier to entry into building an AI company just got lowered so low, right? Yeah. So you're going to get the snake oil charmers, but also you'll get the real innovators that come in. To your point on how is it going to help the average human being, in this thing, I think, it is, I fundamentally think this is the next phase of evolution of humanity, right? Which is we live in a world where the amount of data that is being generated far exceeds the amount, the processing power that we have to take advantage of all that data to make a decision. Be it, making a decision of, but think about thinking about going on vacation, right? The amount of information overload you have right now to actually just kind of curate and search all the websites to find a hotel, read the reviews and all that kind of stuff. Honestly, I mean, it's a problem that we created because the information exploded, right? Because we started putting all this information online. But in a world where we live in, where the amount of stimulus that you have around you, the volume of data that you have, we have far exceeded our human capacity. Our consciousness, our human brain hasn't evolved in the last 150,000 years. Of the 200 plus or 1,000 years that we've been alive, right? We're a speck in humanity, in the lifetime of the universe. So this is a natural evolution The question then becomes, right, saying, how can AI really help you? Well, it can help you do better searching, which is the number one use case for artificial intelligence historically has been search, right? So if you're searching for something today, you have to actively go know what to ask and search. Well, if there are enough people like you searching, Google already gives you that in the autocomplete that you tried to start typing in, it'll actually give you recommendations based on other people searching. That will become a lot more meaningful and easier for people. The opportunity to actually link dialogue with, so, we live in a world where so we all use cell phones and devices and stuff like that. The lowest bandwidth communication medium is your thumbs and hands and fingers, right? We can communicate a lot faster with our voice, with thoughts, than we can do with our two fingers typing in a query, right? So dialogue systems just got a lot smarter. So you can now integrate this thing into, let's say, your favorite shopping app. You go into a shopping app today, you've got to go and go to the search bar and type what you want to search specifically because it's indexed on those search words. Well, with GPT kind of technology in the back end, you can just open the shopping app, open a dialog box and say, hey, give me 5 dress recommendations for this wedding that I'm going to attend, and give some context. Like it's going to be in this beach location with so-and-so in the middle of August in Southern Texas. Give me choices, right? And it actually takes all of that context into as input, gets the information that you want to search and gives you that, right? So there's I can go on and 15 different use cases with this, right?
But I'll tell you something, in my mind, again, as a layperson, I'm thinking about this. This could theoretically, I know Elon Musk, have talked about this before on the show. He's coming up with the kind of Neuralink. Imagine putting this kind of artificial intelligence and supplementing it with, instead of the human brain, right? So we become kind of like cyborg. Yeah. Is that something that's actually possible?
It will be possible at some point. Right. I mean, because it's the hard thing is going to be, I don't think it's possible today. I mean, there's a lot of you can do it. We're scratching the surface of it. Right. So I'll tell you how this actually turns out in the future from my point of view. Right. Human beings are, like I said, there's so much information, and the best use of these algorithms and systems is to actually just help you make better decisions and reduce the number of decisions that you're making every day so you can focus your energies on the most critical ones. The age-old concept, everybody wants to do it. Well, that's where, that's one part of it. The intelligence, how do I improve my decision-making by having an intelligent agent assisting me in those decision-making? The second thing is automation, right? If I have to go and scrape 15 websites to actually identify things, there's a simple example today. You don't do that anymore. You Google search it, right? There's an automation there. That kind of automation will come to many different systems. Number 3, it's about what these kind of ChatGPT kind of models did was actually your world's most popular programming language is going to be English, because it's going to be dialogue. Because you can not only just give input and get output, you can ask the systems to do things that doesn't know of before by giving them some prompting, as they call it, in the way you describe it in human language. That is the one that's going to cause that information explosion, if you will, right? Or the intelligence explosion. So Neuralink is to the far end and what they call AGI and stuff. So yeah, artificial intelligence should have been augmented intelligence. It's all about augmenting the human intelligence spectrum to give you the superpowers, or I like to call it, it's your Jarvis suit and to make everybody Iron Man, right? That's what AI is all about. And that's what this thing about. The technology foundation is now in place. A lot of things that the last 2 or 3 years have been very foundational in a lot of the capabilities that just, exploded. And we're going to get to a point there now. We're into that applied AI space. It was all foundational AI before. Now you're in the applied AI. How do you actually put this to work? How do you solve problems? And you now have the tools to do rapid experimentation, get the results, improve it, and keep on iterating like that, right? So I see the world as saying, we'll get into a world where everyone will have, if you grew up in a colonial country like I did, right? You have a lot of help with people and lower labor costs and things like that, right? You will have intelligent agents assisting you with everything you do in life. And it could be in the form of humanoid robots that Tesla is building. It could be in the form of just intelligent, like we already use our maps, for example. There's like a concierge mapper that is in our pockets every day today, right? Imagine that for, your meal planning, that for your, exercise. I mean, everything just gets a lot more easier, and you can actually apply it. You can have intelligent systems do that. Anything human beings can do and can teach a machine, it'll do.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to the Common Denominator podcast. My guest is entrepreneur and investor Ganesh Padmanabhan, who was recently named one of the top 10 tech experts revolutionizing AI. Next week, I'll speak with Ryan Zofe. In 2001, Ryan was addicted to drugs and nearly lost his life in a car accident. In fact, he was pronounced dead at the scene. When he woke from a coma a few days later, he vowed to change his life, has been sober ever since, and now runs multiple treatment centers where he helps people on their paths to recovery. He'll share his incredible journey with us. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Now, back to the show. Is government currently looking to regulate the AI space? Are they doing enough? Is it censored? What's the kind of the regulation space around it?
So it's a good question. So first off, I want to say, we have to absolutely regulate this, because it's not so much regulating the AI itself. There's like the foreign side of the world where AI becomes, artificial general intelligence, as they call it, intelligent enough to actually create other intelligent systems of it and so forth. We're not there yet. But the biggest risk that we have is the actors who use these powerful technologies to do the bad things, right? So there is unintended consequences like the Bard and the Bear of the world, and like all the things that you're hearing from Bing Sophie and so forth. And then there's the intended consequences, which is powerful technology in the hands of bad actors. But that said, this is not that different, but still very different. Not that different from other technologies that have been there in the hands of other people that we have to, like the internet, for example. But we know that we didn't regulate as much on the internet, on like social media, for example. They were always protected by the current law in Congress that's actually trying to fight that. But I think we have an opportunity. But this is an explosion in intelligence and what it can actually do. So it's a lot more potent piece of technology in the hands of everybody. So yes, regulation needs to happen. FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, just this morning or yesterday, I think they launched a guidance on it. I think we're also I have several friends in government who actually are part of in the US for the Biden's AI initiative and so forth. So governments will start regulating it, because the risk on this is not just the unintended consequences and stuff, but there's going to be like workforce displacement, for example, right? This was going to require you to have a much different social engineering construct than we're all used to today, right? Because now you're going to be living with intelligence among you in the form of non-living things, and they don't have all the rights and protections that you have. But there are owners of those things. So it kind of changes our social construct a lot than people give it credence for. So I think we have to really think about what does governance mean, and the governance is less about making sure you have less bias and explainability. And those are needed, don't take me wrong. But it's more about how do you really think about and reevaluate our social contracts.
I always think about like government. You take obviously digital currency, right? It's like they were slow on the uptake. Now people lost billions of dollars with Sam Bankman-Fried and all that, and there's just people going bankrupt, tremendous issues. And AI just seems to be moving so fast, and government moves super slow. So
and I can actually, I'll bet on the fact that the government cannot regulate this successfully, right? I mean, it is not going to be just the government that's going to make this the impact of this more positive and less negative, right? It has to be the big tech. It has to be individuals. It has to be even individuals who are all trying to get into it and learning about it, understanding the principles of it, right? Understanding how do you do it ethically, how do you do it responsibly, and how do you put the guardrails in place when you're building systems. All of that kind of stuff needs to be. I don't have an answer for it, an easy answer. Some form of governance is absolutely needed. It's going to be more self-governance initially. I'll give you one example, right? everybody were giving Google a hard time about like, hey, Google, you didn't, Google probably had the Pathways model, the PaLM model, and some of the other large language models that they launched performs much better than the GPT or OpenAI's models, right? Facebook just open sourced yesterday a model, a large language model, open sourced it, free code for everybody. A model that's more powerful than better performing than the GPT-3 model. That's the state of the art from OpenAI. And I think, but you have to give some benefit of like, what Google and Facebook and stuff, everybody, complaining that like they were not innovating fast enough. Well, they had a lot more to lose. They were not a really early stage startup, so they couldn't actually really get into a place of having a model that is spewing obscenities, because we've had cases of that happen in the past and how that affects their share price and so forth. But at the end of the day, I think one thing you got to look at them and say, look, they're actually self-regulating in some form to make sure that, if I'm even going to suspect, I'm suspecting that this is going to lead to harmful intent and harmful content generation, I'm not going to launch it. You got to give them some credit for that, right? Now, is it a really good corporate thing to do, or like, is that the right, tech investor friendly kind of approach to take? We don't know. Time will tell, right? I mean, right. I think there's a lot. It's going to be a combination of self-governance, government-led governance. There's going to be a lot of third, not-for-profit parties who would actually start, engaging in this activism and stuff, right? I think the core thing that I'm pointing to is governance needs to start, or the entire thing, reevaluation need to start at the social constructs and social engineering constructs than just the product or AI engineering constructs, right? Yeah. I think that's the big need of the hour, if you will. And it's been coming, and we just had a lot of people are just waking up to it right now.
Yeah, it's going to definitely be a journey, like all new things. But I also know, like you specifically, you're the CEO and founder of Autonomize, which I guess merges AI with healthcare. Tell us a little bit about what you do there.
Yeah, so we're Autonomize AI. We're focused on trying to solve one of the fundamental problems in healthcare, which is healthcare as an industry generates, close to 30-40% of all the data in the world that we generate today, in the form of your doctor's notes, in the form of wearables, in the form of medical devices, imaging, patient-reported outcomes, the whole nine yards. Yet healthcare as an industry lags farthest behind than every other industry in using that data to improve human health, right? The health condition. What Autonomize is focused on is actually, and most of that data is actually, it's really hard to analyze at scale because these are unstructured data, which is free-form text and images and so forth. It is also highly contextual, meaning, if you look at a doctor's note about a patient, they talk about things, and then they omit certain details because they know the next physician who's going to read it is always going to fill that up based on their knowledge and construct. But algorithms, you can't expect that to do. And then it is also very siloed and distributed and fragmented, right? So what we're trying to do at Autonomize is we want to turn every piece of unstructured healthcare data to structured, linked data sets that can then be used to power decisions across the value chain. We're initially focused on drug development side of the house with pharmaceutical and life sciences. We're helping them launch clinical trials faster. We're helping them select patients who are most eligible for a trial faster and keep them within the trial. And then we're helping them design better clinical trials. All of that using, machine learning, like natural language processing and language models and so forth.
I love that. And I also know, you do a lot of mentorship and you work with entrepreneurs. So I guess that's your way of giving back. And I always appreciate when I see that when I'm with guests.
Thank you. I mean, it's also it's a great way to, always, like even when I was in a big company, I was an executive at Dell, and I would always do that as a way to keep up to date on what's happening. So there's a lot you take away, and yes, I'm giving back, but it being selfish also, like you learn a lot in those interactions. And obviously, I think entrepreneurs are, I think doctors and entrepreneurs, I would say, are the two career options where you actually knowingly get into something that's going to be really stressful. You're not going to see the pay. It's not that great initially, at least. You're always working for the long term. And you're doing it because you really want to make a difference in whatever it is, to your family, to your society, to the community. But I think, there's something magical about it. And I think every entrepreneur, and myself included, we all need help. And the most basic thing you can do is actually offer that help from anybody in any way you can, right? So, no, I know you do that too. So
yeah. No, it's whenever I see it, it's super important. And we ask all guests this, and I guess always first thing that comes to your mind, what's something that you're most grateful for?
My wife, my family. I think my wife is she's a leader at Dell, and she works at Dell, and she's been this thing, but she's been through me throughout this. We've been together like 17 plus years, and every morning I wake up, and I'm so grateful for having her as a partner and a soulmate in this journey, and every other journey too, right? And then I think that's the center of my world. Very grateful for just being here now. I mean, I think people. It took me a while to actually. I mean, as all entrepreneurs are, I'm assuming, we all are chasing a future, right? But in the process, you forget the present, and the present is called a present for a reason, right? So just appreciating that here and now is something consciously I'm training myself to do, right?
Yeah, it's a tremendous work. I think it's a lifelong work to actually be in flow and be present. It's if we can all reach there, what a world we'd have, right?
I know, right? We don't need AI anymore after
that. Right. That's right. And I see the guitar in the background, but I was going to ask you this because we asked all guests, what's something about you that the general public doesn't know?
Oh, most of things about me. I'm a pretty social guy, so everybody knows. But I'm a trained classical music singer.
Wow.
So I learned, Carnatic classical music, South Indian classical music as growing up. But I'll tell you, it's news to folks here. But if you know where I grew up in India, southern India, and for people out there, I'm like, yeah, you couldn't escape that. You had to go through it.
Right. So I have my neighbor and friend is from Goa, so I don't know how far. I mean, he's like, that's the beach, southern India. So
So the Goa is actually more like south. It's not even actually south for the people from the south, right? So they are more west, if you will, because they cross on the Arabian Sea, and we're down all the way in Kerala is where I'm from, which is like all the way down the sliver state, which is just completely by the coast on the southern tip of India.
Beautiful. Well, really, this has been informative. It's been great. I really appreciate it. Hopefully, we will get our hands around AI and the journey of what is coming in the future. And I know you'll be at the forefront of that. So,
no, thank you. And I don't think we'll have a choice not to get our arms around it. I think it's almost like we should treat this as an evolutionary step in humanity, right? And I think even like one of the things that there's so many other technologies too, not just AI, but in AI being a foundational piece of technology, where we're actually found we now have a bag of tools to accelerate evolution, which we didn't have before, right? In a lot of different ways. I mean, not just AI, but gene editing, and there's so many other pieces of this too. I think it's up to us, and it's squarely on us as human beings to really put this to the best use, right? I mean, it's very easy thing to say, hard one to do it, because there will be confusion, there will be hype, there will be bad actors and stuff. But if you really believe in the broader goodness of humanity, and I do, and I'm sure you do, if you believe in the humans are generally better people and good people and stuff, right? We have to embrace it, and we just have to, shape the evolution in the way we want it to. But thanks, Moshe, for inviting me to the podcast.
Of course. And if people want to learn more about you, what you're doing, and follow you on social, how would they be able to do that?
LinkedIn is the best place for me. I'm Ganesh Padmanabhan on LinkedIn. You can actually follow me on Twitter at the rate of _Ganesh P. Look me up. Or I also run a podcast called Stories in AI, and which is this whole notion of AI as an omnipotent technology, and we want more and more people to be inspired to participate in the spectrum, either as a builder or a consumer. So we started this podcast a couple of years ago to promote more education and get more people inspired to take action. And I've interviewed close to 150 odd AI leaders, machine learning leaders, operators, people who actually build these systems, or who are in part of large organizations to do it. So check it out, storiesinai.com. It's a great resource for you to learn about the use cases that you want to focus on. What's in it for me, for my business, and so forth. How do I think about this? How do I plan for it? How do I build the teams to go support this, and so forth? So all of those places you can actually find me.
Well, thank you so much, Ganesh. It's really been great. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right. Cheers. Bye.
Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Ganesh. Next week, I'll speak with Ryan Zofe, whose journey to sobriety has culminated with him opening numerous treatment centers in America, where he serves thousands of people each year. We'll talk about hope, gratitude, and resilience. Please subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode, and follow me on social media at @Popack. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you again soon.